Welcome, Wargamers, to the foreboding forests of Elpis in the Legacy of Atmos setting, because today we are talking about the Soul Trees as we continue our exploration of Ashala and her half of the Tellus Commune. Now, one thing I'd like to add right up top, if you're interested in this video and you want to know more about the game that we're creating here, please consider joining our playtesting group in the Discord down below. Essentially, by joining the Discord, you can partake in games, you can demo, you can give your feedback, as well as create all kinds of stuff like we're going to have lore contests, painting contests, all those things are happening there. So if you want to get plugged into the community and kind of become, a conversation starter amongst us, go ahead and subscribe there. For those of you who are new to Legacy of Atmos, soul trees are, wait for it, tree-like structures, but they are absolutely astonishing in size and scale. Scattered across the surface of the planet itself, there are 7 of these soul trees in total, 1 for every daughter of Athol. And we reviewed what the daughters of Athol are when we talked about Ashala, the named character version of them, in last week's video. Each of these soul trees appears very differently. They all look very fundamentally different, as we will explain, to reflect the environments that they are in and trying to create. And I think probably the coolest way to talk about the soul trees is to give you what every faction thinks of them, and then talk about what they actually are, because in Legacy of Atmos, the way I've always described it is classic, steampunk fantasy meets cosmic horror, that there are events in the cosmos that affect our game, but we don't comprehend them. And so it's a lot of how much does your faction actually understand what is going on? What is their take on it? And so we're going to start off with the Atmos Federation, the humans of our setting. They've only caught glimpses of some of these soul trees. They haven't even seen all 7 of them. And they don't fully grasp their purpose. To the minds of the Atmos Federation, they act as these large natural fortresses or holy sites for the forest denizens. Meaning they think the soul trees are natural occurrences, and hey, these tree folk that live in the woods, well, naturally they'd congregate along the largest trees and basically turn them into their homes, right? They're basically like giant tree houses. Now, lately, within the Atmos Federation, the Regalis Nakani, which is sort of the spiritual priesthood and also people who do research into the Cryalis, speculate that these soul trees may just be huge reserves of that material, the Cryalis. And we talked about Cryalis in a separate video, that it is basically an energy source or a battery that humans can use to project magics into the world, which makes them incredibly valuable. So to the humans, that they're looking at these soul trees and saying, okay, well, the forest folk kind of congregate around them. It must be just significant to them spiritually. But hey, we as smart, intelligent people know that these trees are full of Cryalis, meaning they're just huge gold mines worshipped by primitive and foolish beastmen that live around them. So again, that is kind of where the Atmos Federation is coming at the idea of these soul trees. They don't have any true significance outside of how we can use them in our experiments and our technology. So to the Tellus Commune, let's shift perspectives here. What do they think that the soul trees are? Well, they understand the soul trees to be hubs of incredible arcane power, and the conduit through which they commute directly to their deity, Athol. Stored deep inside the core of each tree is a nearly endless supply of Cryalis. So the humans are right. There's a huge energy reservoir just sitting there. And it's this Cryalis and the roots of the soul trees that all connect with one another. And so when a daughter of Athol, one of the powerful characters of the Tellus Commune, taps into this, it allows them to do a lot of things. They can share information on a grand scale, so each tree also sort of acts like a library of sorts. They can communicate with one another across vast distances, all those kinds of things. And this ability to communicate and share information allows them to form complex strategies, share wisdom, coordinate their attacks, more so than any other race on Elpis. But more than that, they also view the soul trees as the fingerprint of God. That is, the Tellus Commune believes that Athol grew each tree individually, and so they are a physical and tangible reminder of his presence and their mission and their values. And all that makes perfect sense. Of course, to the Tellus Commune, who were there when Athol founded the world and he was one of their first creations, they would absolutely see these soul trees as being that important to them. However, like we've talked about with cosmic horror, we're going to step back and talk about the reality. And in reality, the soul trees have a few distinct purposes. Firstly, as was mentioned with all of the factions here, they are each a mote of powerful magics needed to keep the quote-unquote experiments on Elpis going. We kind of touched on this in the last video discussing Ashala, that Athel set up this world to create as much vibrant life as possible. He's trying to foster new living creations and form a new army of preservation to fight back the forces of ruin. Well, he needs to do that, and he's trying to experiment to see what is the best kind of life to be able to do that. In charge of that experiment, he has left the Tellus Commune. Their energy resource for maintaining all the things that are going on is located inside these soul trees. So these are power reservoirs the Tellus Commune can tap into to keep all of the other races on Elpis in line. And in addition to acting as a battery of sorts, they also form a huge communications array, and this is what I touched on earlier. Not only can they communicate from soul tree to soul tree, meaning that Daughters of Athal can be all across the planet and still communicate with one another, they can store information there and retrieve it later on, so this way we have a giant living library of information. But additionally, it doesn't just allow the Tellus Commune to talk to itself, but also for the entire planet to communicate across the void with the god Athel himself. Athel knew he would need it eventually to move on from Elpis and cultivate, experiments and life somewhere else, and so he built the planet with its own power reserve, meaning the Cryallis, and the means to communicate with him on a cosmic scale. In this way, each soul tree acts sort of like an antenna, broadcasting the events of Elpis into the void. And the last use of the soul trees is also kind of a mysterious one. You see, Athel can't let all of the evil titans out there know that his experiment is running. He's trying to foster life to be able to fight them. All of these things have to be done kind of on the down low, and so the soul trees also act as a shield, if you will, kind of blurring out what other deities can see. Like when they look at Elpis, they're like, oh, there's no life there. They can look at the planet, and the soul trees are kind of shrouding it in mystery, so kind of obscuring it from the greater view of the cosmos. If a number of these soul trees were to be destroyed, then Elpis would be revealed, and all of the war from the cosmic, backlash of the War of Creation can spill onto the planet. Their secrecy, remaining hidden within the void, is really their key to survival at this moment. And so here at the end, I always like to talk about why I think these ideas are cool. So let's talk about why are soul trees as a concept so cool. Again, it's about reinforcing that idea of cosmic horror, right? Humans in this setting look at the soul trees as just a huge source of potential energy, right? Because they just need it for their technology, for their spells, for their magic, their medicine, all that kind of stuff they're using Cryallis for. What if humanity found out that fossil fuels were the only things keeping us from getting destroyed by aliens? Right? The soul trees are these massive reservoirs of power and resources that the humans want, but they don't understand that the soul trees are also, one, the thing that keeping them safe from the greater horrors abroad, because they keep, Elpis hidden from the greater radar of all the bad guys. And then also, God is real and he communicates with his creatures through them. So he would be like cutting, the one walkie-talkie that we had to God off, harvesting all those resources, and then releasing our presence, or at least the information of it, to all the enemies abroad. But they have no idea. They can't comprehend the scale of those things. And so that's why I brought the question up. What if we found out that fossil fuels were the only thing keeping us from getting eaten by aliens? Would we have burned it the way that we have been all of human history? Well, that's exactly the problem and the question that's being posed to the humans in this setting, and they don't even know it. That we can see greed and avarice and honestly just technological advancements that come from a good place put you in direct opposition to your own safety, but on a scale that you weren't prepared for. Likewise, the Tellus Commune, when Athel created them, they see everything as in a religious sense. Oh, wow, we are God's children, we're his creations. We were given a task to nurture life on this planet Elpis, and his, divine centers of power are these soul trees, and so we worship and revere them. They are obviously very integral to ascending Ashala into becoming a daughter of Athel rather than just being a normal Aldasa. Like they're just incorporate them into their rites and rituals, but they don't have the full grasp of the cosmic scale of things. They too are small creations with limited perspective. So they kind of get the religious sense of these things, but they're not seeing the mechanical side of like, it's a broadcast array and it's a shroud of protection. It's not a holy site. It's a thing that has a purpose, a very tangible purpose that kind of gets lost in their worship of Athel. And the reason I liked this is because when you have factions that deal with limited perspectives, right? I mean, you have the Tellus Commune thinking all of this is a very religious motivated creation, and you have the Atmos Federation being like, it's just natural resources that we can use for our progress. And they're both kind of missing the elements of like what's truly at play on a cosmic scale. You can get some really cool motivations for characters. For example, you could have Atmos Federation stuff where they just want to go and explore and chart and map out where all these things are. You could have a motivation of, well, we want to establish a mining camp. You could have the motivation of, we want to protect it, because they don't know what it is. So you would naturally have human, sub-factions that are like, whoa, we should not be tapping into stuff that we do not understand and fight to protect it. Annex it if you could. Meanwhile, on the Tellus Commune side, you have some that are going to be like, well, we can use this as our communication to Athel. You're going to have others that are like, well, no, we can still use the Cryalis. They can tap into it as well. It's the whole point. It's there. It's there for them to keep the experiment on Elpis going. And so my point is, because none of the factions truly grasp what they're looking at, they can come up with all different motivations to be able to interact with it. And that to me is kind of the heart and soul of big, narrative linchpin places, right? The soul trees, there's 7 of them. They represent an immense amount of resources and possibilities for every faction. Everybody wants to have it, nobody wants to lose it, but also none of them fully understand it. And so that's where you can get competing motivations within factions, obviously direct opposition when you're talking grand scale, Atmos Federation versus Tellus Commune. But even within, though, there's dramas about how people perceive what the value of these things is. And to that, I think that is just a great piece of storytelling elements because it gives you a chance to write yourself into the story. What do you, knowing, what your faction's limited knowledge is, what would you go after a soul tree for? Now, as we're doing these Legacy of Atmos videos, I've always been asking, do you have any questions about the world? Because it helps us form content to be able to answer those questions and kind of give our lore more direction and make sure that it's a full fleshed out universe for people to game in and that kind of thing. So if you have any further questions about soul trees, Ashala, or anything really about the setting, please go ahead and leave those in the comments down below and I will respond to you there and probably create a video based on it. Thank you all so much for hanging out and listening to this and watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in my next Legacy of Atmos lore video. Thank you so much and happy wargaming.